Hi, everyone. My name is Pandit, and this is the Work Mindful podcast. This is our second episode. And this podcast, the purpose of this podcast is to have conversations with individuals who have successfully brought the practices of mindfulness and mindful leadership into their organizations and share with us some of the challenges perhaps that they experience in bringing it in, some of the benefits that they're experiencing. And so today, I'm very happy to, that we have Tracy with us, who is an HR professional and has been working in Total Rewards for quite a few years. And she's agreed to come and join us on this podcast. So welcome so much, Tracy, and thank you for coming and joining the podcast today.
Thanks for having me.
And so, I thought maybe you could tell us a little bit about the nature of the company that you work for. I know that due to certain reasons, you're not allowed to mention the name. It's kind of like top secret, the company that you work for, and that you can't get into too many specifics. But anything you could tell us about, your company, your organization, what it does, so that when others listen to this, they have an idea. Maybe others are doing the same kind of thing in the similar kind of company, then they can relate to the whole thing a little bit better. So yeah, please tell us a little bit more.
Absolutely. So my organization is a global mid-sized financial services organization. We have over 4,000 employees worldwide, and I'm located in our New York metro area.
Ah, okay, New York. How's that going over there? I mean, you're not going to work right now, but aren't things kind of like
work from home?
Okay, all right, because there's so much going on right now, especially in New York. So in terms of just your organization, what inspired you to bring in mindfulness into your workplace? And when did that happen? Like, when was the initial inspiration? Like, yeah, this could be really good for our organization. This could be really good for our people. Like, when did that idea, like the light bulb, first go off? And, how did you go about implementing it then?
Yeah, that's a great question. So in general, in my organization, we really value our employees' total well-being. And when we think about wellness programs, we focus on three pillars, which includes like physical, emotional, and financial wellness.
Mm.
So we obviously have a lot of programs that existed prior to mindfulness that were successful, which included the employee assistance program. We have financial coaching, just to name a few programs that were already ongoing. But of course, we're constantly evaluating what could be valuable to employees. And this actually came up as a result of one of our HR leaders participating in a conference where you were speaking.
Oh, really?
And they were very impressed
Okay.
and almost surprised that we hadn't quite yet explored mindfulness as an offering for employees. So I think one thing that I would say when it comes to implementing mindfulness or any type of program for employees is it's very helpful when you have a leader advocate already. So I think that made it a little bit easier for us where we had an HR leader who was familiar with the concept and just wanted to introduce it to DTCC.
Okay. And how long ago was that? Where, do you remember which conference or where it was that you heard me speak?
I don't recall which conference. It was definitely one of our vendors, and we work with a lot of large organizations. But
Okay.
it must have been at least 2 to 3 years ago now. So a couple of years have passed already since then.
Yeah, because we've been working together on and off for about 3 years, I think, at least.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Okay. Yeah, so that's really interesting. And so was that, and I know you can't maybe speak for her, was that her first introduction to mindfulness when she heard that, or she'd already known about it and then she's like heard me speaking at a conference? She's like, yeah, maybe we should try it. Do you know about any more background for her?
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure what her exposure was to mindfulness prior to that conference, but speaking in very general terms, I would say most of the population at this point has heard about mindfulness in one place, whether it's in the workplace or in their personal lives. Just speaking anecdotally, talking to friends and family members over the past couple of years, I think mindfulness has become a more well-known concept.
Okay, okay. And like for your own self, was the first time that you heard about it when I came to the organization, or had you heard about it? Had you practiced it? Had you delved into it on your own, just out of your own curiosity and in your own journey? Had you kind of dabbled into it a little bit before?
No, honestly, I really hadn't. And I'm very grateful for the role that I'm in within my organization because it's what really pulled me into practicing mindfulness meditation on my own outside of the sessions that we offer to employees. So prior to that, I hadn't really engaged or thought about it. And I'm sure it's the same experience for a lot of employees, even though it is becoming a very popular way of dealing with stress and other aspects of just living your life. I think the workplace is a great place to be introduced to it because your employer's really saying, hey, this is something that I think will be good for you. We're investing in this because we do think that there's value to this. So it kind of helps get that first buy-in from an employee experience.
So this was at the workplace was your first experience of mindfulness. It's interesting because, a lot of times when I talk to people, their first experience of something related to meditation was like at a yoga class.
Oh.
Like that's what I hear. Like, yeah, I did some breathing exercises at my teacher in my yoga class had me do it towards the end when I was like in the savasana, the sleeping posture at the end of the whole thing when you're just kind of relaxing and winding down. A lot of times that's where they hear of it. So that wasn't the case for you. You heard it in the workplace, about it in the workplace, right? And so it's interesting. That's not the ideal place you would think of that you would get introduced to something like that. You would think that that's something you do on your own at some other location and not at work, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so, I mean, can you maybe just describe then your own practice a little bit? What you do since when you first heard about it, and I guess that was when I came to speak at your organization. Do you remember what went through your mind? Were you like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is what we're going to do here? Like, was there a reaction like that in your mind? What was it like your initial thoughts when you heard that this is what, your organization was going to implement? I almost spilled the beans in the organization here. So
No, actually, I was really excited. I think the great thing is that there's already a lot of published research
yeah.
and articles out there that really can tell the average person what the benefits are, whether it's stress reduction or even something like reducing unconscious bias. So I was able to read up on that prior to the implementation at my organization. Actually, I had to because we had to share it with our HR leadership and really make sure that this was something we thought was worth pursuing. So I think having that knowledge made me actually very excited to offer it to our employees.
Okay. So because you were introducing it, you had to learn about it on your own.
Exactly.
And that it sort of reinforced like, oh my gosh, you're going to introduce this. So let me figure out what this is that we're going to introduce. Yeah, it's interesting how that happened, right?
Yeah. And I have to say, after we started offering sessions, and as you know, in the beginning, it was really on a monthly basis. So it's something that was offered monthly in the office, but we were still encouraging employees to take what they were learning from the monthly sessions and practicing it on their own. And I myself took that to heart, and I actually use an app. I usually meditate in the mornings, even if it's just for 5 minutes.
Wow.
And it helps me just, have a smooth start to the day.
Well, I'm so glad to hear that, where here you are trying to figure out how to present it to everyone. You had to do your research because now all of a sudden it landed on your plate. And now here you are doing it almost every day, would I say? It's like, or on a pretty regular basis?
Yeah, I would say it's close to every day since October of 2019. So even though we had been offering it for, I think, about a year or 2 years at that point in time, it was really in October when things really got stressful in my life that I just jumped in and decided this is something that I should dedicate at least 5 minutes a day to. And I found that it's really helped me.
Well, so can you tell me like some of the benefits you personally experienced, like how those 5 minutes, because 5 minutes almost sounds insignificant. Like what can 5 minutes do? Like if I said, I'm going to go to the gym for 5 minutes, you'd be like, what? So like, how does, or I'm going to spend 5 minutes with the most important person in my life who I value the most. I'm just going to spend 5 minutes with them today. Like, how does 5 minutes do anything like for you personally?
Well, I think it's just taught me to pause. So to be honest, particularly in my personal life, it's easier for me to just jump and blurt out what I want to say in that moment in time, especially if I have a very strong reaction. And now I find myself catching myself. It's not 100% of the time, but at least I've noticed that I'm starting to catch myself. And to me, that's a big deal. I think it's allowed me to slow my pace when necessary. Obviously, sometimes you do have to be working at a fast pace, and that's appropriate. But there are times where I just need to catch myself, take a breath, and those 5 minutes in the morning remind me to do that when I need to do that in the middle of the day.
So the 5 minutes actually helps you later in the day. Like somehow whatever you did at like 8 a.m. comes in handy at like at 2 p.m.
Exactly. And to be honest, I didn't really start noticing it until I was actually practicing meditation on a more regular basis. So probably just this year, I've really noticed the difference in myself.
Wow, that's really amazing. So
Yeah.
you do it in the morning, and before, like when you used to go to the office, or if you're having a virtual meeting, the fact that it's able to translate 6 hours later is
Yeah,
pretty powerful.
absolutely. Yeah.
And so, have you found that it's sort of helped you in the workplace specifically because you're able to catch yourself? Is that where you find it benefiting you the most, or work and home both? Where do you find that it helps you the most, these practices?
I would say both at work and at home equally. I know you speak to this a lot when you guide our sessions and introduce our sessions, but really the greatest example, which I can really relate to, is the email reaction. I know you can hastily write an email in response to something, but I really do take the time to write something out. I will go ahead and write out what I think I should be communicating, but then I do take a second to say, let me take a moment and let me reread this. And I might reread it again. And it's just forming that habit of evaluating what you're doing and not necessarily reacting, but responding.
Wow. So that's so, I mean, first of all, it's just great for me to hear that this is the kind of impact it's having on individuals. And I'm so really appreciating that you're sharing more because, most of the time, you know, we don't have much conversations. You send me an email, hey, are you available on Thursday at noon for the session? I'm like, yes, okay, thank you, great. All right, see you later. So it's like, it's the first time I'm actually getting to know Tracy, and know a little bit more about you. So this is great. What are some of the things that, well, first of all, was there, when you all talked about it, were there some folks on your team or in the organization that kind of like rolled their eyes like, oh gosh, seriously, this is what we're going to do? I go to the gym, I work out, that's good. Was there any pushback, any resistance, anyone who rolled their eyes at the idea that, oh, this was going to be introduced? Did you hear some like talk in the coffee room? People like, can you believe we're going to do this? This guy was a former monk. What's going on here? Like, was any of that kind of going on? I'm just kind of curious.
So I actually did not experience any of that. I think across my organization, people are very open minded and excited to try things that will help them be better in the workplace and at home. And interestingly, I think one of the way we implemented it, we actually started with a session with you where you introduced the topic as opposed to just jumping in and having people meditate for 15 minutes. We had that introductory session, and I don't know if you remember, but we had a huge turnout. I think we might have had over 100 people live in the room, and it was possible that people might have dialed in. So I think educating people in the beginning, letting them just understand what it's about, and then letting them dip their toes for just 5 minutes, which is exactly what we did. We let them meditate. I think it was 2 or 3 or 5 minutes max that they meditated that first session. And then from there, that's when we actually started offering the mindfulness meditations where they would actually meditate for 15 minutes. So no, there was no initial pushback from either leadership or employees. And I think in general, because employees do understand that our goal is really to help them and their total wellness. I think we've already communicated that through other programs. So I think they already have that trust in what we're trying to do when we offer different benefits. Luckily, we didn't have any negative reactions.
Yeah, that's really good to hear. I mean, I find that each year that I'm doing this, there's less and less response. Like not too long ago, I did a webinar for another large organization, and I don't know, maybe I just won't mention their name right now. But the first of 7 series I did, the first one, it was for their global audiences, had 2,200 people on that call.
Wow.
This was about a month and a half, about 2 months ago. 2,200 people worldwide were on that call. And then for another institution, I did it recently in the last month or so, about 1,800 people. These are obviously really large organizations, but
Wow.
yeah, I think like mindfulness now has become a household name. It's no longer associated with, I don't know, monks or spirituality. People realize it's an actual real tool that you can use to just improve in different ways and to reduce your stress. So I'm also curious, what are some of the what is some feedback now that we've been doing this for the last several years? What's some of the feedback that you're getting from people? How are they using it in their life? Like, okay, for you, you do it in the mornings, and then you find out that it helps you, think about your email before you send them. It helps you catch yourself before expressing your opinion, and that's so. I mean, just think about how powerful that is. Like, how many blunders in the history of the world have happened because we weren't able to stop our mind and tongue from doing its thing, right?
Right.
Causing chaos. And so the fact that you're able to stop it, like that is such a powerful thing if you think about it actually. Like if we all had the ability to just press the brakes on our tongue before it starts, uh, wiggling and like doing its thing and causing chaos. Man, the power, right? So what are some other things that you're hearing from other people? What benefits? Maybe just like in your casual conversations with colleagues, they're like, "Oh yeah, this is what I'm using it for. This is how it's been helping me." That kind of thing. If you could share, that'd be great.
Yeah, I would say stress and anxiety are probably the top two things that I hear from employees. They usually, if they email me personally and let me know that they were so happy to join that session, they'll let me know, it's been a very stressful time. Um, and then so on and so forth. They'll share the details and share their gratitude really for the session because it did help them with the stress. And as you might have seen with all that's going on in the world today, um, people are even more stressed than they usually are. And we've actually seen an uptick in participation in our sessions
Yeah.
over the past couple of months. And that's why we've actually increased the frequency. It's really to address that need and let employees know that we're here for them. And we understand that these sessions are a really great place to help them de-stress. So I know there are a number of benefits to mindfulness meditation, but I would say for the employees that have participated, I would say stress is one of the biggest drivers of them like feeling the need to participate in the session.
Yeah, and I think that in the last month or so, we did it almost every week for like a month and a half or something. We were doing weekly sessions, I believe.
Yeah, exactly. And it was really helpful to help people transition to what we're calling the new normal. And it looks like we might be here for a little while longer. So hopefully continuing to offer these sessions is very beneficial to those who participate.
Yeah, yeah, and now, and I remember one time when I was doing an in-person session at your organization, one person shared that they'd been having trouble sleeping for many, many years. I remember I kind of this was like the one of the highlight testimonials I've gotten. Like, and I remember she was saying that it's been really difficult for her to fall asleep for like years or something, and that since the session started, and I remember she actually got emotional. Like she's like, I've been able to sleep a normal amount of hours. And I'm like, how much suffering do you experience if you can't sleep properly? And she actually got emotional. Like I've been getting a good night's sleep for the last, since you started these sessions. I was like, Wow, like that's life transforming. Like, if you can't sleep properly, you're going to be tired, you're going to be irritable, you can't focus, and you're just it can affect your mood and make you sad. I mean, it can just affect you in so many ways. So I can't imagine what it's done for her in that regard.
Yeah, I think it's great that you brought up that example. It's a funny story. So sometimes I meditate at night as well, just to help like clear my thoughts. I'm usually still thinking about work before I go to sleep, so I try not to do that so I don't dream about work. But I was listening to a meditation, a guided one that was recorded, and my husband was with me and he fell asleep before I did. So now I say, if I'm going to practice meditation and you're listening in, be prepared to fall asleep because he does fall asleep immediately. And it's hilarious because he does have issues with insomnia and it's very unfortunate, but
Wow.
the guided meditations really work for him and it works for me as well. But I just thought that was so funny. He fell asleep before I did.
Wow, it's amazing. So I'm glad you also just brought in like family members, because I know that a lot of times people do end up sharing this with their families, and that families start doing it. Have you heard others also talk about that? Somehow it's the mindfulness practice from work has spilled over into their home life, and it's helped them there as well.
Yeah, I actually have heard that. I have a few colleagues who have said, you know what, I practice meditation on my own now and I have an app. So I let my kids use it too. I tell my kids, hey, I use this app. You have trouble sleeping? Use this and it's great. So I haven't heard so much about partners. I'm sure that it's happening. I just haven't personally heard about it, but definitely employees are sharing this with their kids. I think they're seeing that it's helping them, and obviously, you always want the best for your children. So it's a natural thing to share meditation with them.
Yeah, and sometimes people think that, well, how is a child going to want to meditate? And I kind of always say that just don't push them into it. Don't force them to meditate because they're going to just hate it then. And just start off with like a 2-minute thing. Make it fun. Do it as a group activity. Like go to your room and meditate. Like that's not going to work.
Right.
Like what? That's not the approach that's going to work. But it's like make it fun. Like one suggestion I give is like, okay, that hey everybody, we're going to do 2 minutes of meditation, and our challenge is we're going to see if we can think about nothing at all. But if you do think of something, remember what you thought of, and then go back to just like a blank slate. And now it's like a game. Like, oh, okay, well, let's see if we could do this for 60 seconds or 2 minutes. And now they're trying, and it's powerful because they'll start recognizing and becoming aware of what's going on up here. And then you can go move deeper and deeper. Like, okay, so whatever you thought of, how'd that make you feel? Oh, that was kind of upsetting. Okay, now you know that makes me feel this way. This makes me feel this way. Imagine at a young age, they can start like master their minds and thoughts and emotions. Like that's so powerful. There's even studies that show that in schools when they do it, kids are much more well behaved.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, there's studies showing that. There's some research in some school that did it. That there were some schools replaced detention with meditation,
I had heard of that. Yes.
and they found that it has tremendous benefits. Kids are just becoming kinder to each other. So it's amazing what's happening. So also I was just wondering, like in terms of the procedures, were there certain steps and procedures that you had to follow to get it approved? And I'm wondering if you could share some of those with us so that folks know kind of what to do going forward.
I mean, the one thing I would call out that again would apply across anything that you're trying to implement in an organization is just getting buy-in internally first with managers and senior leaders, because at the end of the day, if it's not supported by leadership, it's really not something that's going to be successful in the organization because leaders drive culture. So I would say that was the very first step on our side. After that, it was actually pretty simple. But I know for other organizations, one thing that they would need to consider is how they want to deliver it. I know our model has changed over the past few years. So initially, it was really in person for at least the folks in the New York metro area. And then obviously everybody else in the different locations would dial in via video conference. And now, because of what's happening globally, really, this is completely virtual. And it's actually increased their participation. So it looks like we're going to stick to this. But definitely, you need to know your population. I would say that there are a handful of folks in my organization who still prefer in person.
Sure.
the majority really have moved to that desire to participate in different trainings, not just mindfulness, but across all trainings and experiences virtually. So depending on your employee makeup, there may still be a greater population in your organization that prefers in person. And I know a lot of organizations still do that across their different programs. So I think that was one of the biggest considerations we had, because we also wanted to be fair. We have multiple offices in the United States. And I think offering this virtually also made that experience the same, regardless of what location you were in.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, this. I've noticed also that the attendance has gone up quite a bit because of this whole pandemic thing that we're in, and it's everything is virtual now, and this is one of those things that can be done virtually. Of course, nothing really beats an in-person experience. There's no doubt, which probably goes true for everything. If you want to learn to do yoga, it's easiest to have an in-person as opposed to your screen, and now you're doing the posture and you're like looking at the screen, and how do you do that? So an in-person, obviously, nothing beats that. But now we're going virtual, and I think it's working out just fine, actually.
Yeah.
I'm still there. I'm live in person. They can see me. I can't really see most of them, but they can see me, and we kind of go through it just the way we did. And people ask questions. I ask them questions. They put the answers in the chat, so when they get active about that, they unmute themselves and personally ask a question. So it's the personalism hasn't been lost. We're socially distant, but I feel like the personalism is there because, and I know sometimes I ask people, how many are you doing this for the first time with me? And there's a few people say that. It means people have been doing this
Yes.
on a weekly basis, year after year. So I think there's a certain comfort level that I have with folks. And, maybe one day when things go back to normal, we'll be back in, your offices. Who knows? Who knows what's going to happen going back in the next 6 months. Let's see what happens.
Right.
Are we all just going to be, looking at each other on screens, or are we going to be able to like shake hands again at some point without freaking out,
Right.
So, yeah. So is there anything else I was wondering that you, like some closing or concluding thoughts on, mindfulness in the workplace, or just, personally, that you'd like to share, that just to kind of help people in some capacity or another?
Yeah, so I would just say that bringing mindfulness to the workplace is just one part of a larger program that you'd want to offer, because mindfulness, I think it actually helps employees in all pillars that we focus on at my organization: physical, financial, and emotional. And you might be wondering how the financial aspect also ties in, but I think it also helps you reset your mind, gain some clarity. And, when you're focusing on work, financial stresses at home, and other things that may be on your mind, like children and family, like the mindfulness really helps you. So that's why I would say would actually target all three areas of your total wellness. But I would say like this is a great part to a broader program that you would be offering. And what I really appreciate is that you recognize that when we offer the mindfulness sessions to our employees, we tell them this is just one part of being mindful. Mindfulness meditation is the practice, but you could live more mindfully in so many different other aspects of your life, like mindfully eating, walking mindfully, and exercising mindfully, like, listening to your body. Maybe you're exercising too much, or you could probably push yourself a little more. So it's interesting how this is just one piece of a program that actually complements other programs that you may be offering, because it lends itself to help employees improve their physical wellness, maybe their financial wellness. If they're starting to think more clearly, they can take a breath and become more focused. I know sometimes things get overwhelming. You don't know where to start. And sometimes when in that scenario, you'll focus more on work and kind of like go of your personal matters, because there's just too much to juggle, right? So you're prioritizing. So I would just say that it's a really wonderful thing to bring to your employees, because it can help them in so many aspects of their life.
Wow.
both inside and outside of the workplace.
Yeah, I mean, it really sounds like you kind of presented a really well balanced offering for the workforce. Mindfulness is important, but that mindfulness can also impact their ability to make financial decisions and their health, being more in touch with their mind, their emotions, their thoughts, their physical health. It really does have to be, it's like a full, complete meal.
Exactly.
And it seems like your organization is offering that physical, the emotional, the financial. I mean, that's pretty much it. If those things can be worked out, then for the most part, people will be peaceful and happy. And if
Right.
people are peaceful and happy, they'll be more positive at home. They'll be more positive at work. And if they're more positive at work, they'll be more positive at home. It all kind of, it all kind of rubs off on each other, right? So when
Right.
you are offering something for your workforce, know that you're offering something for them as a human being, which is going to impact every part of their life. And when other parts of their life improve, that's going to improve their work life as well.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, wow. Wow, this was so great. It really was great to like actually have a conversation with you. I don't think we've had a conversation. It's all been just like work related conversations. What time are you available? Okay, great. Thank you very much. Okay, send the invoice. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, take care. See you next week. See you in 2 weeks. So no, I'm glad that we actually had this wonderful conversation just to kind of get to know you a little bit more. And yeah, so thank you very much, Tracy, for taking the time out of your day and this very busy schedule. I know you're on calls all day long and you took the time again to go on another call after work. So I really appreciate that. And what I can do is if people do want to get in touch with you and maybe ask you questions and they want to try to bring this into their own organization, what I'll do is I'll just have them reach out to me and then I can connect them to you via email. Is that okay? Like if people reach out to you and ask you some questions about the next steps for that organization?
Yeah, that sounds good. I'm definitely happy to provide my personal input, um, and help any people that are curious about bringing mindfulness to the workplace.
Wonderful. So I'll do that. People are going to reach out to me and then I'll connect them with you personally. So Tracy, thank you very much. It was wonderful speaking with you and we'll look forward to connecting with you again very soon.
Thank you. Sounds great.
Thanks a lot.